Hello, everybody. It is me, Everest Tuesday, and today we're here talking about ReZero Starting Life in Another World, Season 2, Episode 5. Okay, so, not much. I say this in every single one of my reviews. Pretty much the first 9 minutes, because I review things that way. Not much happened, but we saw we saw Subaru finally confront Ekidona, and I like it how his first reaction was is like she's like trying to get a rise out of him during that whole entire like confrontation of like as like we saw that the world started to crumble, like her imaginary first trial started to crumble and then it was about to close for them to like go their separate ways. And then she's like trying to get a rise out of him. I think that she was trying to like because she was like trying to like spook him out, trying to like freak him out, like tell him like you weren't really talking to your parents, so none of what you said in like the last in this trial means anything. Like I have no idea why you're trying to like do it, but then Subaru like shuts her down and then says, "No, even though that they weren't real, I still got to say what I wanted to say. They got to say what they wanted to say to me, and now like I respect them more, and like they're way bigger a part of me than I would have thought of before." So, and then after that, he says thank you to her. That whole entire interaction, and I agree. Like that whole entire trial, like strengthened Subaru like a lot. And then now he says thank you to her. And look at how just because this trial like made him like better than he was before she's Ekidota is very surprised and says, "Wow, I don't think I've seen anybody like like say thank you to a witch." And he's like, "Well, I'm glad that I was able to surprise a witch." Because that conversation was pretty much very mild. Like I think Subaru also said that he wanted he wanted Amelia to pass through all the trials, but we saw what happened with that. So then after Subaru left the place, he said goodbye to Ekidona. Wait, he also complimented her at the very start of the episode. He complimented her being in the school uniform. She said, "Yeah, I tried to look in your deepest memories in order to do that." Now, if she was able to recreate that with his memories, does that mean that she also saw like did she look at all of his memories, or did she only look at like a few memories like here and there? Because if she looked at all of them, that means that she could have looked at Return by Death, right? Because I'm pretty sure like I don't know if like in her like dialogue if she mentioned like if she was beating around the bush saying like something that you wanted to tell your parents but weren't able to, like sort of thing. But I don't think he would tell his parents about Return by Death. And afterward, when he exited the place, he saw Amelia on the ground, and we saw for a short moment that like I almost thought that he was gonna like not remember like his strength and self in the outside world, but then remember it in the real world. But no, after the first trial, like he don't know because she wanted to like have like a very like first impression with the trial instead of him like knowing what's happening, so for him to not know what's happening, so that's why he wasn't able to remember her. But I guess now he does remember her. Maybe he just remembers the trial, maybe, but he does remember all of like what happened with his parents, stuff like that, which is pretty good. Then he sees Amelia, and Amelia, I guess, failed her trial or passed it in like a weird way. I can't tell because like when Roswell, I don't know how far Roswell went because he got destroyed. But then we saw Amelia just like there, just just like pass it on the ground, just having like a traumatic freak out moment where she's like telling people not to look at her with certain eyes and like saying how she like wants her father to help to like save her and she wants Puck to save her, but she didn't like call out her mother at all. So it was just her father and Puck. So then we have something with the father, which I don't think that that's ever been mentioned like at all before. And then we see Subaru trying to like help her, like hold her, like hug her, and then say like I'm here. You should calm down, calm down. And she's like still freaking out. She's covering her face. She doesn't even want Subaru to look at her. And then and then we ended up they ended up saving her by bringing her back to like the Rosewald house in the sanctuary place, and then put her to sleep under hypnosis to get her out of that traumatic experience that she went through. I'm really wondering what her trial was because it did seem pretty weird. I really want to see what it was. And then we see like all of them gather in a room where we end up meeting the pink haired elf girl from like the first episode or the second episode where she where she like appeared in front of Subaru and then ran away as he went into the ruins or whatever. And then she ended up introducing herself as someone that is a representation of this community and stuff like that, and she like protects people. And she like I like it how like Otto came out of nowhere and said, we don't need to go through the trials in order to get out of the sanctuary. What if we just carry people's unconscious bodies out? And then the pink-haired girl said, "No, that's not going to work unless you want our souls to be trapped still in here, but our bodies to be outside. Then yeah, you can save our bodies, but I guess all of them would become like Rem then." So I guess that's where we're at right now in the first 9 minutes. I'll be back in a few seconds to read the rest of this episode. All right, so since this episode is around at least the 26-minute mark, I watched a little bit more than I usually do. So I watched around the 9-minute mark to around the 18-minute mark, exactly at 18 minutes, said, man, this part, this middle part of this episode was just spicy. Spicy, especially the ending with Rosewald saying that he's the one that made the events of the witch cult happen at the mansion where Subaru had to like go through those like attacks of like Amelia dying, like Ram dying, Rem dying, fucking Beltius. He is the one that orchestrated it all. Damn, man, and Subaru's face, see Subaru's face, he was already mad at like him just knowing that he didn't do anything during it, but then know that he was the one that orchestrated it. Like, dude, man, this guy has just always been creepy, especially during like the royal selection. I keep on mentioning this part where when Subaru made a fool of himself, he was smiling the whole entire time. So he's just there, just all beat up. Who knows if he's actually even beat up? He could have just been lying about doing this. Probably, he probably just hurt himself doing that. Unless he actually did do the trial, which would be pretty funny. So then, after the 8-minute mark, we saw how Subaru met the pink haired lady. I already forgot her name. I'll probably have to remember it. I remember like all the main character names, but in this new character, I don't remember her name. But I guess I'll just call her Bells. So then, the pink haired girl Bells ended up saying that she's like an old lady in like a younger person's body, and Subaru like looks at her. And he's like, "Oh, I finally got to meet like a milf in a lolly body," and I like this type of thing. She's like, "Hey, you shouldn't call this person old." And then she ended up just reiterating like something that I said in like the last thing, where if a beast man or half blood leaves the sanctuary, their soul stays in and is contained while their body just flops over and is a sleeping beauty, just like Rim. So I'm wondering if like I'm really wondering how the sanctuary was like made, because that's like an ability that I guess like Eki Dona, I already forgot her name again, is someone that was able to like control people's like dreams and stuff like that. So maybe it is possible. So we also saw after that part, Subaru was talking to Ram. Subaru was talking to Ram, and then she mentions how not all of like the half bloods in the sanctuary are like on the side of, or I guess like all of the half bloods in the sanctuary. Never mind, all of them are against setting the sanctuary free. Like they don't want to involve themselves with the outside world. They don't want to be near them. They just want to be in their own relatively safe place, even though that they all look like very disheveled. And like if they did leave, they'd probably have nicer clothes and stuff like that. But I guess they're just content with being where they're at, even though that I guess they're also scared of change probably. So then they're against the trials happening, and that tells Subaru that he needs to trust people carefully, and that these people might attack Amelia or even like attack him, even though that so far Subaru hasn't told anybody that he's taking the trials. Even though he has the memories, he could tell them that he could also do it, which I think is going to happen at the end of this episode, where Amelia Amelia attempts to do the trial again. With I guess like this series also needed like some. I guess instead of like him having like a threat outside, I mean like inside the trials, he needed them outside the trials. So in the dream world and the outside world, because now he has Rosewald as an enemy, and he also has the villagers as an enemy. Except for the human villagers, that are trapped there are okay with Subaru and them doing it, because we saw how Amelia tried to attempted to do the trial again but failed. But even though that she failed, she still gets to keep her mind. She gets to keep some sanity. So I'm assuming that she failed the first trial too, maybe. Subaru like went in when Subaru was watching like Amelia sleep, and then she woke up after her traumatic experience. Like it's like Subaru and them just have their cute moments. I really think that at this season with Rem gone, I guess people like Amelia. I like both of them in the first season. But we saw I saw this in like the trailer preview where Amelia like reaches out her arm and touches Subaru's like arm, and then Subaru's like, "Oh, are you finally like recuperating my love towards me? Are you finally doing it?" She's like, "No, no, no, it was a misunderstanding. I have no idea what I was doing." So there's something inside of her is trying to like reach out to Subaru. So now we're back at Subaru just getting mad at Rosewald, and he even like he tried to punch Rosewald because he got really pissed off, but then Ram stopped it, and then Subaru like was just yelling at him, just saying how he could have like if he was there, he could have stopped the witch cult with how powerful he was. Because in one of those like back in like the Rem Subaru like arc, like he did see how powerful like Rosewald was when he like made all those mana balls appear and stuff like that, and especially with him fighting off against that giant mob beast in the last season too, when back when Subaru was doing that stuff with Rem. We also and then like Rem dodged it, and then Subaru ended up just spewing out knowledge, and then he mentioned Rem finally to Ram, and then Ram's like, "You can't," like her face was just like completely just blank and stare. She's like, "You can't just say a random stranger's name with me in order for me to change something." and then like he ended up being like having that like look that he has, especially with Amelia and all of them, where he's just like, I can't believe that she doesn't know Rim. And then like Roswald was saying how even with his absence, Subaru was able to like exceed all of his expectations in order to have the ultimate outcome. Like how him having Subaru do all these things so far with the witch cult has made Amelia's presence within the village, have the villagers like her and stuff like that, and then have everything be normal. And then Subaru just wants nothing of it. So yeah, I'll be back in a few seconds to review the ending parts of this episode. Right, so I just watched the ending part of this episode, but damn, man, I was wondering because I seen the opening song. The opening song, I saw like her name is Elsa, right? Like the fucking like bow chick, the fucking assassin. Sorry, sorry about that. I was swearing a little bit too much, but man, the ending of this episode, Elsa, like I saw her in the open sign. I was like, oh, is she just there just for fan service? No, she's actually there. She's at the mansion. So then, and so then back at the part with Roswell and Subaru, so then Subaru like tries to calm himself down during their conversation, and then Roswell said, well, for after Ram Roswell mentioned how Subaru should be angrier than he should be because of like everything that he's done, but then he looks at Subaru in the eye and says, I can see in you that you can tell that everything that's happened, you agree with me to some point, or else you would have been even more angry, or you would have made even more of a bigger commotion than you already are. And then Subaru like looks away because he knows that that's true, that like if all of this stuff hasn't happened, then he wouldn't have a good relationship with Mila. He wouldn't have a good relationship with Rem. He wouldn't have like all of these things, even like a good relationship with the villagers. If like none of this stuff was able to happen, then he agrees with him, I think. And then after that, Rosewald says, "Oh, so then we are like we are partners in crime." Because he said that before when it's like during like at the starting of the conversation, and then now he says at the ending of the conversation, which I think is pretty funny. And then he says, "Well, the conversation is over now. We can't talk. You should leave." And then he leaves, and it just goes Brew and Amelia talking in front of the church where all the villagers were stationed at, with all of like the other half blood beast watching over them with like all their spears and stuff like that. And then they end up having a conversation. And then Subaru like tells Amelia that he believes in her and that he believes that she can overcome her past and that she can go through the trials. And then like Amelia says that he's a jerk and that because he's looking at her with such pride and stuff like that, because like this is like we see how Subaru like could go through the trials himself, but then no, he wants Amelia to do it because he wants Amelia to like become like as great as him, I guess, or become greater than she is in order to like prove herself. She agrees and then says, "Yeah, I'll try to believe in you, believing in me, in order to like defeat this trial." Even though that she keeps on not being able to get through it because she cries from overcoming her past. And we saw Subaru ends up like I guess like negotiating with Garfield in order to get all the villagers out of the sanctuary, like get all the regular people out, so that way it's only like Amelia and all of them and him because he's probably going to return. And then he ends up transferring all of them back to the village. And then as they're like going towards the edge of the barrier, Garfield ends up confronting Subaru and then says, "Hey, I know that you probably went through the trial, didn't you?" And then he like Subaru like ends up giving it away with his face. Maybe that's why Eki Dona didn't want to like tell him anything because his face would have said something. So then after that, they end up Garfield ends up telling Subaru that like he hates seeing Amelia cry every single time that she does the trials, and that he can't take it anymore. And that since Subaru was able to like get through the trial completely unscathed, and like he looks completely normal and isn't going through any traumatic experience like Amelia was, then that he should do it. And then like Subaru's like, "What? But I want her to do it. She needs to overcome her past." And she's just like, "Does she really need to overcome it?" And like I'm assuming like I guess like you don't really need to overcome yourself in order to change, because right now she's relatively normal. Like I guess like she does have like her past burden. Like she says like I think she said that her reason to becoming the royal candidate is very selfish. So maybe that's why maybe there's some regrets there. But then maybe she like won't go through it. Maybe she'll just be waiting with Roswell while Subaru does it. If Roswell knows about like all the other, I wonder if he had like connections with all the other witches, because he said that if he was there, things would be a little bit more, I guess, like problematic if he was there. I'm really wondering how that's gonna work out. But then we saw how after they arrived to the village, all the villagers that were there are like greeting all of the villagers that were at the sanctuary now there. And then Subaru ends up going into the mansion, knocks on the door, no one's there. And then I think Garfield also gave Subaru like the blue necklace that Frederica gave Subaru, and like told him to like give this to Frederica. And then when Subaru ends up walking around the mansion, sees that it's completely dark, like nothing's there, like the maids aren't like there, Frederica and Petra aren't there, like it's just completely dark and empty. It's like that very red darkness feel that like that like something bad's happening. So then Subaru ends up looking around trying to find them, doesn't find them. Then he remembers Rem. He remembers that if something bad happened, then Rem. So then he ends up running towards Rem's room to like get there, but then no. Elsa comes out of nowhere, slices his bowels. He falls over. He looks at his hand and he's like, "Oh my god!" He starts freaking out. He ends up like looking to find the person, and he sees her. She's there over his body, saying, "You needed. I told you that if we met ever again, that you need to check your bowels." So she's there. I wonder if she's actually there. Like, I wonder who like hired her. I wonder if it was Frederica. I wonder if it was like maybe the witch cult, or maybe it was Roswell that did this. Cause damn, I wonder what his spawn point's gonna be. Cause that like ending, like we were wondering how the past few episodes Return by the Death hasn't been used since I think Subaru like got very like very saddened by Rem's illness that she has right now. So then Subaru, I'm assuming that he's probably going to respond back at the sanctuary, maybe, or maybe he'll spawn right before he got in the mansion. But I'm assuming he'll be back at the sanctuary, and then he'll be pretty freaked out in front of Amelia or something. I'm wondering where his spawn point's going to be. But the next episode will be pretty interesting to see if like he spawned while he's in the sanctuary or what, or like right before he got in, to see what he does with Elsa, because that was a pretty good cliffhanger to see like how to see Return by Beth start in the next episode. But I really enjoyed this episode. It was really good information base. We got everything that we needed to know. Actually, at the start of the episode, middle of the episode, and then episode. I really enjoyed it. I'm also noticing that the voice acting is like a lot like louder than usual. I don't know if that's like the sound design or something, but it sounds it makes the emotion go through a little bit more than it usually does. But yeah, if you enjoyed my review and stuff like that, you can leave a like. If you didn't enjoy this server, you can leave a dislike. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video next week. And hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. See you later.